Hello, fellow crafters. Welcome to Home Buddy. Recently, I've been spending a lot more time in the kitchen, and I could really use another apron that I could put on when I cook. I found a free pattern for this adorable 50s style apron online that I'll link in the description below. I made this apron according to the pattern instructions, and while it looks pretty cute, there are a couple things about it I'm just not thrilled with. Because of the way it's assembled, when you turn the garment inside out, you can see the several unfinished edges on the straps and waistband, which aren't a huge deal, but don't look very professional. I also wasn't crazy about the back being buttoned. Personally, I think that ties are both easier to use and more attractive. With that in mind, I sketched up this design for my final apron, featuring a bow-tied back, V-shaped neckline, and symmetrically placed pockets. I then modified the original pattern to reflect my design. For fabric, I'm using this green cotton bedsheet I bought at Goodwill for $3. It already has a lovely border decorating the edges, so I decided to cut my skirt pattern right alongside it. That way I could save myself the trouble of hemming the bottom. To create a V-shaped neckline, I folded down the corner of my original pattern piece to create a dip when it was cut on the fold. In total, I ended up with 14 pieces of fabric, which seems rather excessive, but considering that most of the pattern pieces are double layered for extra durability, it's really not as intimidating as it sounds. I also reinforced the straps, bib, and waistband with fusible interfacing. With that done, I began by taking the large piece I'd cut for the skirt of the apron and gave it a rolled hem on either side. To do this, I measured around 1/4 inch from the sides of the fabric and folded them over onto the wrong side. After sewing, I trimmed the excess and folded and sewed the edges once again to ensure that no raw edges were visible on either side. I also did this to the top edges of my pocket pieces to prepare them for attaching. I also folded and pressed the seam allowance on the sides of the pockets so they won't be visible on the right side. With that done, I began the process of pinning the pockets onto the skirt apron, making sure that they were equidistant from one another. I stitched the bottom edge of the pockets wrong side down so that when flipped, the seam would be invisible. After that, it was a simple matter of top stitching the sides of each pocket to seal everything in. The original pattern calls for the skirt to be gathered in order to fit the waistline, but I honestly didn't feel like gathering 36 inches of fabric that day, so I decided to pleat the waistline instead. I used a total of 12 half-inch pleats, reducing the length of the top of the fabric from 36 inches to 24. This will make it easier to fit to the waistband later. I prepped the apron ties and back strap pieces by pinning them wrong sides together and sewing them, leaving one unfinished edge so they could be turned right side out. After that, I top stitched them to keep everything in place. I used essentially the same method for the bib and shoulder straps, but I left certain areas open so everything could slot together cleanly at the end. And with that, I could begin apron assembly. I attached the apron skirt to the bottom edge of one of the waistband pieces so that the fusible side would be facing out. I slid shoulder straps into the small holes I'd left on either side of the top of the bib and top stitched all the way across to seal everything in. I really liked the look of it, so I ended up top stitching over it twice more for a decorative effect. Now I can attach the bib of the apron to the top of the inner waistband. I'm using the exact same method as I did for the skirt piece. I also took the end ties I made and attached them to either side of the waistband, so they will function as one continuous belt. And with that, my apron is done! Just kidding. I'm trying on the apron to make sure my shoulder straps are in the right position. If they're left too long or loose, they have a tendency to slide off your shoulders mid-cooking, which is hella inconvenient when you're wrist deep in bread flour. I mark approximately where the shoulder straps should end using my fingers and then pin and sew them into place. To insert the back strap, I simply slid each of its ends into the gaps I'd left in the shoulder straps, then I could top sew it into place. I ended up forgoing the back strap this time because I liked the fit better without it. With everything secured, it's time to cover up that ugly fusible. I trimmed the excess fabric down with my scissors so everything would be neat and tidy. Then, I took the remaining strip of waistband I'd made earlier, and I ironed down the seam allowance on all 4 sides so that it would be visible when turned right side out. I could then pin it over the bottom waistband, hiding all the ugly fusible from view. And stitched it into place. My last step was to take some of the remaining fabric I had and turn it into a small headband to complete the look. And with that, my new apron was done!